Hello, everybody. Um, my name is Dylan Nordhoff, and I will be presenting on my individual project and what I learned through the process. Um, so what I did for my project is I compared two different translation softwares, one of them being Omega T, which was first created in the year 2000, and a newer one called MateCat, which was created in 2019. So we're going to have a little bit of a showdown between these two um, cat tools, and I'm just going to talk about a little bit about what I learned by comparing these two cat tools. I learned three main points, or these are the three of the main points I wanted to talk about. First of all is the domination of cloud services in the market of cat tools, the role of machine translation in translation process, and then later um, machine translation and translation memory and how that all works. So we are going to dive into the first one. So as I mentioned, Omega T is an older software that we've worked with a little bit in class. It's a downloadable software, whereas MateCat is a online cloud service. So what are the pros and cons of each one? And as I looked into this, on some of these websites that compare different cat tools, it basically said, like, would you rather have an interface that looks new and modern, or would you rather work with a software that looks like it was built in the early 2000s? And that's a perfect analogy of these two different cat tools. MateCat's obviously more modern. Everything you save, all the projects you do are stored online. You don't have to download anything. You just get on it and go right into it. And as I thought about this comparison of two different types of cat tools, it brought me back to the good old days where you'd use back in the day in the early 2000s, you'd have to, if you wanted to play a game, a computer game, for example, you'd have to go to the store and actually buy the disc and download that software on your computer. Whereas nowadays they have services like Steam or Voobly. You can go download it. It's still a download, but you have all of your information, everything stored online through these gaming services. And another comparison that came to mind was kind of like an old Toyota versus a new Toyota. So you'll hear a lot of people, especially from older generations that had more experience with these older cars, they'll drive these new cars and they might appreciate them, but they'll always say, they just don't make them like they used to. They don't, they're not as strong. They're not built from the same materials as they used to. They've gotten cheaper with their manufacturing. And so one might make an argument, make the same argument with cat tools. They might say, well, the old cat tools, yeah, they were downloadable, but they had more gadgets. They had more, they were a little more complex, which can be a good thing in a sense. More options. Whereas the new ones, they're kind of more simplified. And they don't quite do everything that I was able to do before. And a lot of this probably comes from just being used to using the old version. If you drive this car for 20 years, you're gonna kind of become attached to it and you don't really want to leave it anymore, even though you might be missing out on some really cool features with the new one. The next thing that I really discovered was the role of machine translation. How much should machines really be taking part in our translation as translators? So the first comparison that came to mind was a comparison between the role of C-3PO in Star Wars and the role of the APUs in Matrix. So as opposed to this theory where machine translation is kind of just this service that you just say, hey, do this for me, like Google Translate. Hey, C-3PO, I want you to tell me what these Ewoks are saying, or tell me what whatever these droids are saying. It's not like that. Machine translation is less like a C-3PO type of service, and it's more like an APU. The human controls the machine. The machine definitely makes this human's life a lot easier and makes them more effective. And so, but in the end, the human makes all the decisions and controls all the movements of this machine. And something I also realized with my experience translating with MateCat particularly is, they give you a lot of good suggestions from the translation memory. They give you a lot of machine translation options, but you got to be really careful. You've got to step back and say, look, I'm the translator. I've got to make sure that this machine is actually, giving me a true recommendation. You might have to do some research outside of just what the cat tool is giving you. So be careful not just say, oh yeah, this machine is awesome, it knows everything, I'm just going to trust it. So you got to be careful with that. That's one of the main things I learned too. Lastly, I learned that translation memory and machine translation really, at first I was skeptical, and I said, well, why would I need to see different pairs of different documents that are similar to mine? How could that really help me? Either way, I'm going to have to translate it. So once I've kind of understood how the extra information coming from these cat tools can help you, I realized that they're kind of becoming essential in the sense that the whole services of translation and the whole industry is based on speed and quality. So the more you can produce, the better. And of course, maintaining high quality. And the translation memory helps you sustain that high quality. So it's really, in a sense, it's similar to what old-fashioned translators were doing before. They might have had a dictionary next to them, and a couple documents. And while they were writing these terms, or while they were translating, they would maybe look up a term in the dictionary. Well, what is a term in the dictionary? It's basically just a pair. It's a language pair from one language to another. And that's essentially what a translation memory is, except for it's a translation, it's a segment pair, right? A bunch of them, millions of them. And they come up automatically. You don't have to actually search for them in most cases. So that's really helpful to have more information. And by obtaining more information, you're actually getting a better quality results. So translation memory, machine translation really can be helpful. And that was the last thing I learned. And yes, thank you so much.